Hi, this is Bob Miglani, best-selling author of Embrace the Chaos. There's a lot of chaos these days happening, but it doesn't look that way. It doesn't feel that way on Wall Street. The stock market keeps going up. I don't know what's at today, but we have a very special guest today. I have a very special guest, Michelle Feinstein. Michelle works on Wall Street. She works in the financial services industry. Hi, Michelle. How are you?
Hey, Bob, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for inviting me to your show. I'm so excited to just, meet with you and talk about what's going on right now in our industry.
Absolutely. Michelle. So Michelle is director in the technology group, and she's head of client engagement and technology solutions consulting at BNY Mellon Pershing. Did I get that right, Michelle?
It's a mouthful, but you did. Yes.
Okay.
So I'll focus on helping clients use our technology, learn about our products and solutions in a nutshell.
That's great. I mean, I know there's a lot of the audience that listen to this show and this podcast and this video cast are concerned and they're worried about the future because we're living in uncertain times, right? And so you're running a team, you're running an organization in the financial services industry. It's fast paced. So Michelle, talk to us a little bit about how you got here. I want to give a sense of you, the person, and how you got to where you are today.
Well, it's funny, when I started out, I was going down one path, and that was actually to be a broadcaster on a major news channel. But life took me down another path, and I started to end up in technology, in financial services. And I ended up staying for close to 30 years. And I think what kept me on this path was that this industry kept innovating all of the time. And I really was able to take a lot of the skills that I would have applied in a broadcasting role. And instead, I traveled the country for many years, meeting with different firms and really kind of teaching them and storytelling to them, helping them understand how can they use our solutions to help grow their organization. So I think in the end, it was a good thing, and I've enjoyed my journey. But I would just say it didn't follow my plan. Right.
And life never does. I mean, life, you have all these plans. Mike Tyson, I think, is the one who's quoted as saying, you have all these plans until you get punched in the face, right? And plans change.
For sure.
Yeah. So you were in broadcasting. That's fascinating. So the jump to financial services, how did that come about? Is you sort of a chance meeting?
Right.
Or?
Yeah, I was a communications major in college. I did the news channel there, and I never really got to start my career in broadcasting, but that was my intention. I ended up taking a role right out of school, kind of just for the money, and I ended up starting out at Pershing. And from there, my story just continued. So I was able to move around the organization, and the different roles that I took as a product manager, as an investment services professional, doing business consulting, business development, the more I did, the more I enjoyed. So I stayed on the path.
That's fantastic. Actually, there's a wonderful book called Range, and it's David Epstein. It's fabulous. I'm just reading it now, Michelle, and it speaks to what you're just saying, is that all these different roles and these experiences, these range of experiences have helped us in other parts of our life, in the newest role, in the next role, and the next role. Have you seen that? Have you seen that progression as a result of your variety of roles?
I have. And a lot of the times when I took on a new role, I never had any experience in that role. So, when I came into Pershing, I had no background in business or technology. I just jumped in and I learned. I think the other important thing is good mentors. So looking at people in the organizations and learning from them, studying about what makes them great, what makes them smart, and taking those things with you. And I did that throughout my career. So each time I took a change from product management to business development to business consulting to becoming a manager, I pretty much just jumped in with 2 feet. It wasn't like there was a playbook for me.
That's great. I love that. I love the idea of having a beginner's mind. That's fabulous. And it's important nowadays, right?
Yeah.
Because we've never faced this pandemic.
I'll mention another book. One mentor had given me years ago was, "What's gotten you here will not get you there."
Yes.
And so it was like, don't remain stagnant. Don't stay in your safe zone, because, whatever's making you super successful today, that could go away pretty quickly. So I think the summary was, you have to keep learning.
Absolutely. That's wonderful. So how is Pershing learning? First of all, tell us about Pershing.
Sure.
I heard of Pershing because on the trades and various other statements, I see the Pershing name, but I never really understood what Pershing is. So talk to us about Pershing.
Yeah. So think of Pershing like the backbone to many organizations that are in financial services. We don't really want our brand to be known. We're trying to power their brands. Right. And so the way they do that are organizations that are either broker-dealers, registered investment advisory firms, hedge funds, family offices. They're all looking to Pershing for our people, operational support, but most importantly, technology and enterprise data. So sometimes these firms don't have either the big budgets or the staffs in place to do it and build it on their own. So they come to Pershing and say, hey, can we use your technology for our front, middle, and back office? Can we use your operations? But it's all about their brand. So everything we offer, they can white label, and no one really knows that we're the engine behind their organization.
You're the intel inside, I suppose, right?
Pretty much. That's a great way to look at it.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. And you're based in New York, but you're part of BNY Mellon. Is that right?
That's right. So BNY Mellon is global, and Pershing services 1,300 clients in 30 different countries. So you can imagine we are having to think about all the different ways that we have to make our services apply to international clients, to domestic clients all around the world.
Wow. And so how has the pandemic impacted Pershing, and how are you adapting to this crazy environment that we live in today?
So March 11th, 2020 was my last day driving to Jersey City, and I haven't been back since, and that's our home office location for Pershing. Yes. And I would say initially the impact was big, right? Everyone, Pershing was an organization where we mostly always came into the office. We really didn't work from home. Right. But the entire company pretty much overnight globally went to work from home, and it was seamless.
You were prepared for that.
We were prepared. So I think our continuous focus and testing for business continuity really played out very well for us. At the beginning of the pandemic, we dealt with a lot of increased volumes of processing and trading. We did that seamlessly. And one of the things that we did do was we pivoted as an organization. So once we got into the April timeframe, we realized that a lot of our clients were struggling going digital overnight. And some of them didn't realize what they had available to them in terms of digital solutions. So we formed a committee internally. It had 200 associates in the organization on it called Go Digital. Okay. And a lot of it was focused on education. Okay. So we stood up a Go Digital website, and we said, if you're not aware of this, we have solutions for you, for your advisor, to help them open accounts digitally, process money movement digitally, things like mobile check deposit, et cetera. And it became really important.
Wow. So you created a resource center.
We had to immediately, and it was greatly appreciated. Yeah. The second thing we started to do is we started to hear a lot of feedback from our clients on, well, this is great, but can you make these other things more digital? Because we can't touch the paper. We can't come into the office. Right. And so we started looking at how can we re-engineer anything that was not digital or that was paper-based. We had to change that. And so a lot of new projects started emerging as a result.
Right. So you guys, you got together, the internal committee, but you also, you were mentioning to me the other day about the role of external and bringing the ideas and internal. So how do you do that? Is there sort of a format that you mentioned?
Yeah, so we call it voice of the client. And voice of the client really does drive the prioritization of any investment that we make. Each year we go through our funding process, right? And so we're looking at what have clients told us are the areas where they have pain or where they need help or where they want to reduce the friction in their processing. A couple of ways we do that are we have a client advisory board and a technology advisory board. And the client advisory board is at the most strategic and executive level. And we have presidents of all of these different firms kind of sitting on that board and talking about things like the impact of COVID, business continuity, the need to bring more services to their advisors and investors, and how they can remain competitive, as well as regulatory issues. Yeah. Those conversations end up translating into strategic areas of investment for Pershing. The technology advisory board gets a little bit more tactical. So we have 25 firms that sit on that board. They represent registered investment advisory and broker dealers. And in those conversations, those clients are very transparent, and they're sharing their stories around, what technology are they investing in to help their advisors, to help their investors, and really to modernize their technology internally so they can become stronger organizations.
Right. So you're listening to outside people. I mean, that's the message I'm hearing is that you call people, you get together, and you listen, you ask for advice, you ask what's going on. How do your clients feel about getting together with potential competitors?
You know what? They love it because they want that peer networking and they want to learn from one another.
Yeah.
And, you know, they know that they're in a safe environment when they come to this technology advisory board conversation. They choose to share what they want, but what I would tell you is they're pretty open. And we've talked about things like, how do you train your advisors? What are you doing differently? Where are you investing next?
Mm.
And they share that information. The other thing we do though is we do bring in outside consultants, and we also bring in our third party vendor relationships. So these are a lot of, you know, groups around CRM providers, financial planning providers, where many of these firms are relying on them. And so we let them learn from them as well. So we kind of try to neutralize it a little bit. It's a lot of best practices, thought leadership, etc.
That's right. So there's a strong ecosystem that you provide for them to learn from.
There is. So a lot of times what we'll do is they'll partner up, you know, leaders from different organizations, and they'll run a panel discussion on a topic. And then other times the other side is Pershing. So the other benefit of the Tech Advisory Board is we're bringing our leadership to these meetings, and they're having a front row seat to have a conversation and voice their needs right to those decision makers.
Right. No, I love that. I love the idea of having a business actually listen to their customers, because a lot of businesses, a lot of organizations pretend to listen, and they might do some market research, but it sounds like Pershing is really engaging customers in a different, unique way. And nowadays, we're all reimagining and reinventing the future. And so give us an example, Michelle, of how your team, you know, what are you guys doing as you run a team? Okay, so I get the Pershing, the big company, the big organization, but you yourself and your team, how are you adapting your team into this marketplace today?
So the groups that I manage, the client engagement and tech solution consultants, we did, you know, a lot of travel. I mean, for most of my career, these teams were, you know, boots on the ground, meeting clients in their offices, attending conferences, speaking on panels. So everything was done in person. One of the biggest things we had to do was reimagine, how are we going to do our jobs now? So, you know, leveraging things like Zoom, Microsoft Teams, WebEx with prospect meetings, client meetings. But also I have folks this week and last week doing panels in a virtual environment. So pre-recorded breakout sessions, using tools like On24 to do a panel with different people within the industry, not even in the same company. Some of the challenges that we faced along the way but have been resolved are, can the firm that we're working with use the same technology we're using? Are they allowed to use Zoom? Are they allowed to use Teams? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. It depends on, you know, have they passed their kind of risk reviews within their own organizations to use these tools? So that's been interesting. Another example I'll give you is our team in India. They usually participate in a contest every year called Technosphere 2020, usually in person. This year, they created a virtual reality experience with virtual booths showcasing our technology and solutions, and they won. And so they really reimagined how to show up.
That's fantastic. I mean, I think it's part of it is, and I do this a lot for companies and organizations, as you know, is that part of it is the technology part of it, right? Getting on Zoom, Teams, and all that. But there's the other part of it, which is the mindset of people, right? And I did a survey the other day on LinkedIn, how many people turn their cameras on? And most people do, but there's a certain amount, 15%, 20%, you know what? They don't put the cameras on. Did you have to face those kind of experiences with managing teams? And you know, people are like, well, I kind of feel uncomfortable. Talk to us about that.
So in the beginning, everyone kind of started to attend meetings and not everyone turned the cameras on. And you'd be surprised. I actually had to ask my team, would you please turn your camera on so that we can collaborate and feel connected? I think part of the challenge was being at home. People were like thinking, hey, I don't have to get dressed up for work every day, but they didn't want to be seen if they weren't. I think as the months went by, people got comfortable. Even myself, I started showing up to meetings sometimes with a baseball cap on backwards with my glasses because I had just gone for a 5-mile walk. And what I let my staff know is that's okay. If you need to go for a walk in the middle of the day just to mentally take a break, I support that. You know, something else we did as a team is we took our team meetings and turned them into virtual happy hours at the end of the day, and everyone had their favorite drink. Alcoholic or not, it was like, it's your choice. Oh, your kid's sitting on your lap during the meeting? No problem. We're going to say hello to your kid or your pet or whatever it was. And that started to make a difference. I think people started to relax a little bit. It was important.
So Michelle, tell us about how you get your mindset right to embrace the chaos, how you as a professional, very successful professional for the financial service industry, what do you do? Tell us about your self-leadership. and how you move forward in these crazy times as a person, as a human being.
So as a result of being home now for almost 9 months, one of the things that's really helped me tremendously is having the ability to exercise every single day. So I go for a 5-mile walk
Wow.
most days of the week. On the weekends, I've actually become a hiker. So my husband's been pleasantly surprised, but we've probably hit almost every major park in New Jersey, and it's so stress relieving.
Mm.
I think the other thing is just being able to be around family. So connected. You know, I have college kids in the house and a high school student. In a normal environment, I probably only see them on the weekends for a few minutes. Now I'm seeing them every day, which is a gift. It really is.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right. I think we have to kind of be grateful for this time. I know at some point, I mean, it was great in the beginning, and then as towards the middle, I know for me, having all these kids at home was like, oh my God, please go back to school, summer camp, something.
Or different age regions, right? You've got the young
Yeah.
ones. Yeah.
Yeah. And the younger one come wrestle with me, the dog. I mean, it was crazy. And so I think we have to just stop, take a breath and say, look, in this history of time in our life, you know, this is the moment right now, right here, that we have to really treasure it with our family and our loved ones as much as
That's right.
possible.
Yeah, and I just think your mental state is critically important. So taking the Monday off or a Friday off just to do nothing. I mean, sometimes, you know, you can get, I'm hearing a lot about Zoom fatigue or
Yes.
this technology fatigue. I
Yes.
mean, here we are, you know, usually most days I'm up at 7 a.m. and I'm online till 7 p.m. and I'm staring at this screen and I'm not
Yes.
getting up. By the time I get up, I'm frozen.
Yes.
I'm literally
Right.
frozen.
You're exhausted. I get drained. So Michelle, give us one tip. Give the audience today who are trying to reinvent themselves, right? If you're trying to reinvent yourself as a person, as a professional in a career, or you're trying to reinvent your team, what is a tip that you would offer them?
Well, I think the first tip is to talk about it with your team and solicit ideas from them. I mean, get creative. Don't stay in your safe zone. In some
Mm.
cases, you can't. So you have to really reimagine and embrace things that might seem difficult or impossible, but they're not. So, you know, creating a conference in a virtual way versus because we may never be in person again is important. I also think it's the emotional side to this whole thing. So make sure that you stay connected to your staffs and, you know, ask them if they're okay and what's going on at home and does anybody have COVID and is there anything you can do for them?
Mm.
Um, we don't see enough of that happening, and it's critically important that we do just test that emotional well-being of our associates.
Yeah, and asking them simple questions. Do you have
Yeah,
parents who are, you know, vulnerable?
yeah,
I mean, there's a lot of folks that I talk to all the time, leaders, who are saying, I'm really worried about my parents and my kids can't hug them because of the restrictions and everything. So for the fear factor, and that anxiety plays out in meetings and productivity and the engagement that we have in the workplace. So that's absolutely right on. I would ask Michelle, talk to us a little bit deeper, if you will, on the reinvention concept, right? So you said, you know, don't be comfortable, right? Get out of your comfort zone. How do you as a team leader help your colleagues get out of their comfort zone and try something unique, try something different? What do you do?
yeah. You know, I think number one is a lot of people can put up invisible barriers. They might be afraid to try something new because they think they can't learn it or it's too difficult or maybe they don't have the time. So you have to make sure they know they have the time.
Yeah,
Pair them up with someone that's going to
great
be,
idea.
you know, really educated in that skill. So let's say, for instance, the use of API technology, right, is highly in demand.
Hmm.
Maybe I need someone in my team to become an expert in APIs, and I match them up with someone on my integration team. That can seem scary and overwhelming. But
Mm.
after a few months shadowing and working side by side, all of a sudden their skill set has become much broader and
Mm.
deeper as a result. So sometimes you can't just like throw it over the fence. You also have to give them some, you know, guidelines and ideas of how to be successful.
I love it.
That would be one recommendation.
Yeah, no, I love the idea of pairing people up with different skill sets because, you know, first of all, nothing moves us towards the future like having somebody who's a role model, perhaps,
Yeah.
you know, a point of
I'd
reference.
also say talent swapping. So if you say to somebody, hey, I'd like you to evolve and stretch and grow. And so I'm going to give you this short-term assignment. Maybe it's 6 months, maybe it's a year. But I think if you give them the safety to coming back, they're willing to take that step and try it. So we do those talent swap programs internally at Pershing. And in many cases, it's turned out to be wildly successful. And some people have stayed in the new role that they popped over to.
Wow.
Let's say that you were a business analyst and I asked you to talent swap and become a product manager. It seems like a stretch, but many people have done it successfully.
That's great. Michelle, that's fantastic. I love the idea of a talent swap. So how long is that for? Is that
Like I
6
said,
months?
it could be 6 months, it could be a
Okay.
year. And at the end of that, if the management area of the group you went into is happy with you, you could remain. And
Got
if
it.
not, you can just go back to the job that you had before.
I love it. Michelle, this has been wonderful. We're going to close now. Any last minute thoughts about transformation and reinvention that you want to offer? Any other?
I just think to every firm, no matter what industry you're in, it's really, work with your teams, take a pause and look at what are the opportunities to really, let me start that over. So look at internally at how you can re-engineer and automate anything that is not automated today. If it's paper-based, how do you make it non-paper-based? How do you modernize your technology stack so that you can be ready for whatever comes towards us over the next 10, 20, 30 years? Make the investment.
Right. But you have to fundamentally ask that question. I think that's a great point, is really look at what you're doing from the customer's lens, from the user experience, and to remove the frictions that you might have. Right.
Well, and I'd add one other point, right? So if you're going to make a huge change, if you're going to re-engineer internally and try to re-engineer externally, you also have to look at the culture of your organization. So are they ready? Are they going to embrace this change? Do you have people that will be resistors? You've got to find out why. And
Yes.
then you may have to make some movements as well. So culture within the organization has to go along with the change that you're trying to execute.
I love that. And I always tell my clients, most business problems are people problems,
Yeah,
right? In the sense that it's challenging to get an organization to move their culture towards embracing change. And so it's really about people and managing people that can move it forward. So
it's very, very true.
great. Michelle, thank you so much for coming on our show, on my show. This is Bob Miglani. I'm delighted to have Michelle Feinstein, a Wall Street expert, for us to talk to us about the change and adapting to change that Pershing and Wall Street are making towards the next year ahead. Michelle, thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thanks, Bob. Take
Okay,
care.
take care.